Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Per Schneider and Brian Altano.
Hello.
And for our next topic, we went a little long on Zelda, which I regret, but I always love when we talk about Zelda on this podcast.
I could have gone for another 3 days.
I could too. Maybe we should experiment more with a format.
My favorite
for
franchise.
Zelda specific sort of talk. Look forward to that, folks.
Yeah.
So, next thing on the list is not really related to this week, but it's something that kicked off in our minds because of something that happened this week. So this week, EA moved its press conference, meaning it is not participating in E3 the way it used to participate. Per, why don't you give a little background before I present the topic at hand?
Well, I mean,
I think much that.
EA wants to. E3 is a closed event usually, and EA wants its experience at E3 to be open, right? And like we've seen other companies do this, by the way, in the past.
Nintendo
like,
World Championship.
They have been,
Right.
Nintendo did the World Championship. There have been people. Remember Gathering of Developers? They used to like build a tent outside of E3. I think a couple of years ago, didn't Ouya like rent a parking lot and got in trouble with
There's something weird like that.
the ESA? So
like
there
a
are all these
truck.
things. Obviously, EA is doing it as part of E3. They're part of the ESA. They are part of E3. but
Electronic
they're doing-
Software Association, for those who don't know.
And they're, EA wants to carve out a piece of competitive gaming, as they call it, and want to make more of a party out of it, right?
So this set off the question, would Nintendo end up taking that time slot, which EA's press conference is normally on a Monday.
Prime spot.
Prime spot. I think and will they have a conference? More importantly, that's the bigger question, right? We'll talk. We'll get to the E3. Do they take EA's time slot? I think the answer is no, but we'll get to that. Does Nintendo take the stage with NX being imminent? Do you go back to the stage to make that announcement? I say yes.
You think so?
And I've said yes before and looked bad because they didn't go back.
Yeah.
But
I
I will say that.
Wait,
a new console, a new platform deserves that spot, deserves that attention.
So there's this amazing ebb and flow that happens at every press conference, and by now, if you care about video games, if you're like me, you've seen 1,000 of them. And when they go really well, there is nothing like them in the world. There's this palpable electric energy in the room. When people see something they like and you get that crowd response that you can't get in a pre-taped Nintendo Direct, there's something amazing. When something breaks or screws up, like Nintendo's Ravi Drums Wii Music thing.
Wait. But I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I mean, I think the digital event was successful the year before when they showed Zelda.
I love their digital
events.
events.
Last year, they ran into some problems, and they ran into some serious problems. There was no Zelda Wii U in there.
Right.
The Metroid Prime Federation Force footage was lame.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Woolly World, again, regardless of how awesome that package was, that was kind of rough. And then ending with Mario's 30th was a little weird because on one hand, it's a celebration, right? You're like, yes, Mario's 30 years old. On the other, this is not a new, like, exciting game announcement. This is something we're excited for.
It
but
raised
it's not
expectations.
up
Like,
there.
yeah, Mario's 30. Here's something special. You were expecting something.
Even if it was like
something
2
new,
seconds of Mario next.
Yeah. Well, I think that
which they don't do, to be fair.
that had less to do with the format and more to do with the content.
And that's true.
Had you taken that exact same press conference and put it in front of a live audience, I don't think it would have fared any better. So that's really what I'm saying is that, like, if they have something to show for the NX, it has to really wow to be like, we want that crowd response. Like, remember the times when we first saw a Zelda game? Like, what was it? Was it Skyward Sword the first time we saw that? Or Twilight Princess?
Twilight Princess?
Where there was
with
that
the Conan the Barbarian music,
where the audience went crazy, and
Yeah.
you could watch that video on YouTube. It's got tons of views. People are really like, it's just an amazing moment in video game history, and I don't think it would have worked as well in a Direct. I think that, what was it, the first time we saw Zelda Wii U was at the Spike Game Awards? That was in front of a live audience, right?
No, the first time we saw Zelda Wii U
Was
was
that at
at
E3?
the digital event
Okay.
when they broadcast it online, and we were losing our minds behind the stage.
In the
Let's
war
not
room. Yeah.
pretend.
Oh,
we were
yeah.
in the war room. It was me, you, and Perry. We were like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yep.
God, did you see that?
Yeah, but it was it was the limited short look, but very successful.
Yeah, but,
right?
but who
Yeah.
cared
It
about the
worked great.
stage
Yep,
then?
yep.
Like, we were on the edge of our seats, dying to talk about it. I remember you and Fran got together and did a rewind theater
Yeah.
for it. Like, the excitement was still there. The energy was still there.
For sure.
But I don't know if that energy transfers really to a platform announcement. And I
platform
wonder
announcement.
if that sort of demands a stage presence.
I think yes. I think we talked a couple of episodes ago. You were adamant that they need to announce now, right? They need to
if
move with
if
NX.
they're selling it this year, which I
Yeah.
think if they wait till E3, they're not selling it this year. But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's very, very possible.
Yeah.
They have Zelda. which is highly anticipated, a crowd pleaser, will draw a reaction from the crowd. No matter what's going to happen, we know what they're going to show is going to be cool. Just seeing the snippets of the artwork in the world, we know they're going to have a good showing of that game. Secondly, yes, it's time, right? Like they need to go. If Zelda is it, and there is not another like Super Mario Galaxy 3 for Wii U, or we haven't heard anything about the next Pikmin. Like if there's nothing major on those titles, NX is the big announcement, and platforms need a little bit of showmanship.
Yeah.
The problem, though, again, Jose, is that there is no replacement for Iwata right now.
No.
As a showman, as someone who gets up on stage and pulls the 3DS out of their pocket. You can say maybe Reggie is going to be that
Reggie
guy.
can do that, yeah.
But Reggie does not speak for NCL, and this would be the first unveiling of a console that all the investors in Japan and the market in Japan is looking for. Like Nintendo is a darling old school company in that country.
You don't put that in the hands of Nintendo of America's boss.
I feel like that needs to come from someone. Maybe
so
Miyamoto. Maybe Miyamoto is the guy and says, "This is why the NX is going to be the big thing."
Yep. Even though he's more creative, and even though he said, "I'm not as involved with this one this time around," which he did say that.
Kimishima is not going to be the guy to do here's the NX in my pocket, like however big that pocket has to be for this thing. But I do think I think there will be a live reveal component to this. Because they need to make more of a splash. It has to be here's why it's big. Now, the only thing that could happen is that the NX is not the device that is going to please a E3 gamer audience. Like if it is different, if it is more like a Miitomo target audience.
Sure.
I don't think that's
then E3 is not going to be the event for it, and they would never trot it out on stage.
That is also a good point.
Well, I think it puts them in a weird spot, especially, obviously for us to do our jobs, there has to be games on the show floor as well, right? That's just how coverage works. And like it or not, they had a bunch of games at E3 last year that we got to play, like, Metroid Soccer or whatever it was, and a bunch of other games. There was the Animal Crossing board game.
Which was fun, right? Let's not slag it.
I know,
for the gameplay.
I had a good time with it, but even the smallest titles got their own space on the show floor. Yeah. We're at a spot where support of the Wii U is starting to die down. There's going to be a few games. Star Fox will be out by then, correct? Zelda will hopefully have something more concrete on. There's not a ton of official first-party stuff that's like on the horizon for 3DS just yet. Maybe E3 is a place where you do that. So that really leaves the NX for putting booths on the floor where people can go and actually play them and come back and talk about them. Nintendo has a gigantic booth at E3, just like EA did. EA actually is not on the show floor this year, which also, totally other question, leaves a huge EA-shaped hole in the middle of that hall.
Who knows? Letters EA?
Who knows who's going to fill that? Like, their booth is booming and gigantic. Nintendo's is incredible. It's the size of a football field. It's huge. And I'm always it's always the most magical part of E3 is walking up to that the first time. We get there a day early. We try to peek under the curtain, and Teamsters get mad at us. We come by with the cameras angled like that, try to snap pictures and stuff. But I'm very fascinated in seeing what they actually put on the show floor for press and for gamers to play, because that's going to be indicative of how far along everything is.
I think nothing. I don't think there will be any hands-on NX anything.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think then it's not being sold this year is what you're telling me?
I don't know that.
It's not. If it's
I was very confident. I was very confident it would come out in 2016.
Back this car up. Hold on. Yeah. So wait a minute. Wii U, when it was unveiled, which was I want to say 20, whatever year. Who cares right now? It was shown one year, and then the following E3 it was shown again, and we saw that it went through undergone some changes. It wasn't just the tech demos we saw the year before, and then it sold that November.
Yeah.
You think then with NX this will be the same case? Show it at E3, then show it again at next year's E3?
Well, to be fair, the Wii U at the first E3 it was shown was not playable on the show floor for most people. You could actually, there was an upper level they built that you went up there, and it was very rudimentary tech demos.
You could play it the year it was shown, because I didn't work with you guys, but I worked for 1UP, and I remember, fun fact, it was my birthday. I got online super early. I was among the first to get to it that day. and I got to play it.
Was this the one upstairs?
No, you guys had your fancy little upstairs area. I wasn't. Again, I didn't work for IGN back then. I worked for 1UP instead, and I had to go that route. I also didn't know I didn't have to stand there. I could have gone through someone else, but I know that at the time. I was
whatever.
Like this young kid at E3.
Yeah. But it was a lot of tech demos, and it was very similar to the first time the DS was ever shown off, where there was a bunch of games that never actually became anything, such as the Zelda tech demo, which was the one where you basically just moved a camera around. And the DS had the same thing. There was a Sonic game where you had to rub on the bottom screen really hard to get to get a 3D Sonic to run. So I'm anticipating that there might not be full actual games playable on the show floor, but if there are microcosmic experiences that you can go up and say, well, I have an idea of what this is like. Granted, we know nothing about the way this platform is going to actually function and what its thing is going to be that's going to separate it from anything else.
I think it's going to be a glass case show. I think there will be an X at the booth in a glass case that everybody's going to stand around, snap pictures, and it's going to have, concept demos and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they'll be hands-on.